Best of r/malicious compliance episode 73. Subscribe for edit videos daily. In high school in the mid-late 90s I worked at Target. At the time, and possibly still today, I don't actually know, Target divided their departments into hard lines and soft lines. Soft lines is basically all the clothes and apparel type departments and hard lines was everything else. Hard lines was further divided into A and B, with one being the home goods type stuff like chintzy decorative shit, soaps and cleaning supplies, and the other basically toys, hardware, and electronics. Target pushed the team culture to an obsessive degree and the store managers were zealots except for when it came time to close. Often the store was trashed and the closing staff had to keep working well past closing to get the store into a proper state, with hard lines often hurting the most, and toys absolutely the worst. Basically everyone had to stay and fix the shelves till it was done, your department or not. But this rule didn't apply to the soft lines or the cashiers. They left whenever they were done, usually around 1030 p.m. Hard lines was often there till 1 a.m. during holidays, but there was occasionally a clothing sale, and soft lines was equally a mess. Hard lines was always required to help soft lines because that's the team method. Soft lines managers on the other hand would refuse to assist hard lines ever despite the team rules. I was in hard lines and suffering in school because of the late nights and told my managers I needed to be leaving when my shift ended, without exception. They refused because this wasn't teamwork speak and told me that if I wanted to keep my job that I would go home when my department goes home. So I transferred and started taking soft lines shifts instead. 10 p.m. rolls around, one big sale day for hardware and soft lines is done and packing up by 1015. I go up to clock out and am told that the store leader, who is also the hard lines manager, is calling on the radio for me to go help sort the shelves. I responded that my department is done and that he told me that I'll leave when my department is done. Went home and went to sleep. I still failed 2 morning classes though because the damage had been done. Don't work too close at Target if you care about your grades. Thank you. Next. The Windsor Guildhall was supported by stone columns, so that, like its predecessor, corn markets could be held in the covered area. Christopher Wren, the architect, was asked to insert additional columns to support the weight of the heavy building above. Wren, however, not believing they were necessary, made them slightly short, so that they do not quite touch the ceiling. Thank you. Next. So this happened a while ago, but a friend suggested I posted it to /r/malicious-compliance. Also not native English speaker and on mobile. When I was in college I used to work for my local movie theater. The job was amazing most of the time. You had a lot of freedom from the managers if you did your job right. On a busy night this was the situation. I was working behind the bar. We had a system where we would sell tickets and concessions at the same registers. Most of the time this would work just fine. But on a busy Saturday night it would take a lot of time to take tickets orders, discuss seating in the theater and get all the food and drinks. On this evening everything was running smoothly. It was a buddy night, but the team was well prepared and we had everything under control. I was taking an order from a long-time customer, let's call her Linda. Linda was a nice woman and we always had a nice chat with her. She was 25 and had a subscription at our theater. This would mean it would show her picture on the app with her date of birth and a QR code. This way we could see that the person was old enough to see the movie. Linda was ordering some nachos and 2 beers. Now I know that Linda is well above the legal drinking age, in my county 18, and had already scanned her QR code. You would get points for free stuff when you bought drinks and foods. I already knew her age was alright, so no reason to ask for any form of it. So I'm here getting the order ready, and when I say the total to Linda, a lady behind her, let's call her Karen for obvious reasons, starts yelling, "Karen, you didn't check her ID." Linda looks over her shoulder probably wondering why this woman is meddling and turns back to me. "Do you really need to see my ID? I could grab it if you want to." So I'm here thinking, Karen should stfoo and mind her own business. Me, no, need to. Linda, I know you're older than 18 and it also says so on the app. Karen, no, you need to check it. You need to check everyone that buys alcohol. Me, miss, I already verified her age. And Karen, no, only a legal ID or passport is good to verify age. Sure, this is the case in a normal situation. but when a customer has a subscription at our theater they already have to verify their age and name with a legal id. So we accept the app as a legal form of verification. At this point I'm already losing my patience. Why is Karen meddling in this situation when Linda is clearly over the age of 18? Me, miss, thanks for bringing this to my attention, but this woman is a loyal customer and we already know her age because. Karen, no, this is unacceptable and you should check her id. I'm really starting to get annoyed and Linda is noticing as well. Luckily Linda is a chill woman and smiles at me while grabbing her id. Linda, here it is. All good, right? Me, sorry for this and thanks for showing. It's still not necessary though. Linda, no problem at all and good luck with her, she says while smiling and giving me a wink. I finalize the purchase and get ready to enjoy serving Karen. Karen has a major attitude and the order takes ages. She doesn't like the seats and changes them a couple of times. She also demands a student discount, which we don't have on Saturdays, and she is clearly older. Finally she orders her food and last but not least she orders a red wine. This triggers me instantly. I'm standing there with a big smile on my face like a kid in a candy store. You all see where this is going. I grab the wine and put it on the counter. Then I say with my most polite voice, me, can I see your id, miss? Karen, excuse me? Me, well miss, as you pointed out to me I should check everyone for id. Karen, well I'm obviously older than 18. Sure, Karen wasn't looking anywhere near 18. But she didn't hit prime Karen age either. I would say she was early 30s, but with all that plaster on her face she could pass for a 25-year-old. Me, miss, the woman I asked before you was well over the age of 18. You insisted I follow the rules. You don't have your id with you, I can't sell you the alcohol. Karen, preposterous. I demand to speak to the manager. Me, sure, I will get him. Now the manager this evening was Bob. Bob hated types like Karen and I knew he would stand by my side. So I go grab Bob and inform him of the whole situation. When I explained it all Bob smiled at me with a huge grin on his face. Bob, let's go have some fun. So Bob walks with me to the registers and Karen yelled the whole story. Bob listens carefully and then reminds her of the rules and she needs to have some id or she won't get her wine. Karen is done with the situation. I could clearly tell. The previews already started so she grabs her wallet and pulls out a public transport card. Karen, here you go. It states I'm old enough. Bob, sorry, miss. This isn't a legal form of id. Karen at this point is bright red and I thought she would burst out in anger. Karen, I demand you sell me this wine. This is ridiculous and I'm about to miss the movie. Bob, nothing I can do for you without it, miss. I should also note that when the previews are over, usually after 15 minutes after starting time, we can't let you go inside the theater because this will cause a disturbance for the other visitor. At this point I wish I could have taken a picture of Karen's face. The utter face of defeat was amazing to see. Karen, fine, just keep the wine. I'm going to see the movie and then I'm never coming back here. Bob, that's a shame, miss. That will be XXX please. After the whole incident I got a compliment from Bob for sticking to the rules and for defeating a Karen in her own game. TLDR, Karen insisted I checked a woman's id who clearly was old enough. When Karen bought alcohol used the same trick against her. Manager got called and she still didn't get a drink. Karen was defeated. Thank you. Next. A little bit of background. I work at a place that farms a certain type of animal used in research. These animals live lives of luxury but every once in a while they get hurt due to fighting amongst themselves or being the curious species that they are. This farm has its own veterinary clinic with a couple of vets and a few vet techs. My job. We start each morning with a meeting in which we go over our game plan for the day. After the meeting we begin with pulling the animals observed the day before that may require a health check that are non-emergent cases. All emergent cases such as big lacerations, cases of dehydration, or being rejected by their housemates are pulled from their homes immediately regardless of the time of day. If something is observed by a vet tech later in the day that isn't an emergency, and the animal can wait until the next day, we write it down on a big board so that they get to the clinic the next morning. Our rule of thumb is that if it's not something we would personally go to the hospital or doctor for, we would just continue to monitor the animal, or schedule it for a pull the next morning and do an exam. Small lacerations that aren't actively bleeding, don't look infected, and are already scabby would be a continuous monitoring until it's completely healed. If the animal is favoring a limb but there is no apparent trauma, we would monitor for the next day or so, and if the animal was still favoring we would pull it out. Okay, onto the compliance. This particular morning meeting, one of the higher up vets was laying into us about pulling any and everything we see right when we see it. Some of the other vet tech were asking for clarity on this demand but was met with the vet just repeating the words pull everything the day of. So we left the meeting and went on to our daily duties. It was as if everyone had the same maliciously compliant idea all at once. We pulled everything. Small and almost healed scratches. This animal looked a little down. This animal wasn't eating in the 5 minutes I was looking at it. By noon, all of the clinics were overflowing with patients. The vet that made the demand was sent majority of the cases and seemed very distressed. He even called a few techs into the clinic to return the animals before they were checked in. The next morning we got the lecture about using discretion and that if the animal is not in distress and it is not one of these emergent cases, please use the pull board to pull the next day. One of the techs that brought in the most animals the day prior said, "So you want us to do what we were already doing prior to your lecture yesterday?" Okay, gotcha. I wanted to add that I wasn't directly involved in this malicious compliance as I was still in training and therefore not qualified to make the official call to pull the animal. But I did help find the tiniest of scratches and reported them to my trainer. I'm also adding that the quality of care for the animals that truly needed care was not compromised with our antics. Majority of the pulls everyone made were bullshit pulls and they were allowed to return to groups almost immediately. Thank you. Next. I've been driving for nearly 8 years now. In my country you have to be 18 to drive, but I've been driving back in my birth country. My dad has been driving for 6 years. He's been driving longer in the current country I am in now. I've had my license for 2 years now. My dad lectures me every single time I touch the car on how to drive, what to do and how to change lanes. Me and him have argued countless times on how not to lecture me while I'm driving. Even my mom get angry at him. There I was driving. As usual, he started nagging me. He told me to change lane and I did so. Then he told me to change back for no apparent reason. So I decided to comply. I noticed there was a car in front of me on the other lane, so I kept looking at the side view mirror, slowed my car to 20 kmph, 12 mph, and tried to creep into the other while being fully aware that I very close to the other car. My dad notices this and starts panicking and shouting. I very calmly brake the car as I knew what speed and what distance I was going and turned the car back to my lane. My dad asked me what the fuck I was doing. I look at him straight in the eyes and said, "You told me to change lane." He kept quiet for a while and then said, "Just take me to where I have to be, please." TLDR. My dad keeps commenting on my driving, so I pretended I was gonna crash and he won't say a thing anymore. Thank you. Next. Hi everyone. Long time lurker, first time poster. While I was at university I took a placement year out working and getting paid at a company related to my degree. I was to be a junior developer at a big European company that sold devices. These devices could have third-party software installed on them if it was approved by our QA team. The head of sat right next to me. They could also have unapproved software installed if a key for each machine was created. Very simple process, so I was put in charge of those requests. My line manager informed me that sales and marketing may ask for keys and that it is okay if it's less than 5. One day I get a request for 200 keys. Obviously this is not allowed, so I replied saying that the request was declined. The head of sales and marketing for the region comes back explaining that they had signed a contract with a deadline and some software that was needed by the customer had not been through our QA team yet. So I contacted my manager. He said that I should inform him that once the software had been approved we will have to send an engineer out to remove the key and install the approved software. That would cost a lot of money. 200x 1/2 day rate for an engineer. The head of sales for that region said, "I don't care, just do it and send us the bill," in an email. I confirm with my manager and he says do it, even after I highlight the costs. So I do just what he asks. I book in the engineers to go out to sites 2 days after the devices are installed and get finance to send the bill, which was 200x 1/2 day for the engineers, which added up to just shy of how much they made from the contract. The cost of the engineers was about 75% of the contract value. If they'd had waited 2 days they would have had only lost 20% of the contract money. Sales never pulled a stunt like that again, and my manager authorized me to organize a meeting with the sales directors and teams educating them why they should not request them unless they will lose a lot of money and use this case as a demonstration. Thank you. Next. Background. I'm a cashier/tennis instructor at a city-run tennis facility. Yesterday was a particularly windy day. Gusts were between 50-60 mph. So almost everyone who reserved a tennis court cancelled their reservation. I still had one group of older women come in that insisted on playing, so I rented them a court and gave them the typical please use caution while playing in adverse conditions talk and let them choose a court. This group comes in fairly regularly and, without fail, always find something to complain about. Whether it's the stained tile in the restrooms, the speed of our Wi-Fi, or the noisy kids at the daycare next door, they always insisted we fix something that we had no direct control over. Not 5 minutes after the group took the court, 2 of the women barged up to the front desk and demanded that I sweep their court because it was covered in needles that had been blown off a nearby pine tree. Since I had to sweep the courts anyway at the end of my shift and I knew no one else would be coming in to play tennis, I agreed and grabbed a push broom from the supply closet. Sweeping the court only took about 10 minutes, but by the time I finished, the strong wind gusts had already blown another thin layer of needles onto the court. The women noticed this and, assuming I was just incompetent and didn't sweep properly, demanded I sweep again because they didn't feel safe. Now for the malicious compliance. I made a big point of sweeping up the needles that had fallen and, when more needles invariably blew back onto an area I had swept, I returned to that spot to sweep it off. This continued for another 10 minutes until the women, growing visibly frustrated, said that the court was good enough. That's when I hit them with the "Mom, you said you didn't feel safe playing with these court conditions. I can't let you return to play until I've cleared your court completely." The group returned to their bench and I continued sweeping for a little while longer while they muttered to themselves. I guess they realized their request was pointless and they got up, without saying a word, and walked out of the facility. TDLR. A group of Karens insisted on playing tennis in extremely windy conditions but didn't like the pine needles that kept blowing on their court. They asked me to clean the court off but left after I insisted on completely clearing the court because it was unsafe.